Ladies and gentlemen, here it is, the most listened to radio show on the planet. Even the other stations are tuned in too.
Check. What up, world? It's the man with the plan, Burt McGurk, aka PR, the King of Hearts, and you are now tuned into Clocking Out, the podcast you listen to when you need to get motivated and inspired to doing bigger and better things. What is going on, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Clocking Out. I'm your host, Burt McGurk, aka PR, the King of Hearts. Thank you for tuning in. How you doing? How you living? How you been? Today we have another guest speaker by the name of Joanne. Joanne, how are you today?
What's going on, PRK? How's things going?
Everything is going very, very well. It's getting hotter and hotter, but I'm adjusting. I'm getting used to it. I'm actually looking forward to some nice weather finally, but it's coming a little too quicker than I'd like, honestly.
It's really hot in the CLE. I'm in Cleveland, and it's been like 98 degrees over here.
Yeah, it's reaching like that. Yeah, it's starting to reach over at the 90s over here for us, but it's like slowly each day it goes from like being like the 70s to the 80s, and now we're in the 90s, and it keeps hitting us, and it'll rain for like 3 minutes and then stop. So it really hasn't been cooling down.
Yeah.
So before we get started with my questions, I wanted to give you a second to introduce yourself, to give the audience, our viewers, our listeners, a better idea of who you are. If you can just introduce yourself and give us a little bit of background of your experience and what you're currently working on now.
Yeah, so my name's Joanne Mounts. I live in Cleveland, Ohio, born and bred here in Cleveland. And I have, I guess you could say somewhere around, I don't want to give out my age, but I probably will sometime during this chat, but I've got about 27 years in outside sales experience. Went to college, wasn't really ready to go, but my mom said I had to go or else I'd get a job and make a little bit of money. And then I would think it was awesome and I'd never go. So I went to college, didn't know what I wanted my major to be, did a couple of victory laps, and ended up in sales. So I started out in the beer industry, and I worked in the beer industry for several years. And then I moved into working for Philip Morris USA in the tobacco industry. And then from there, I sold pharmaceuticals. So beer, tobacco, drugs. Everybody says all I have to do now is get a job with the NRA, sell rifles, and I'll have all my vices covered.
Nice.
So then at some point, I decided I didn't want to be in sales anymore. And I went into training and development. So I started working for a large e-learning company. And then, I had a little boy at the time, and both my brothers were in IT. And they said, hey, you got to come work in IT. That's where all the money is. And so that's how I got started in IT. I went over to work for a company called Polycom, selling large immersive telepresence. Then I went into networking and security with a company called Fortinet. And now I work for a company called VMware, which was just acquired by Broadcom, which is the largest chip maker in the world. And I currently, I came over to VMware back in sales again as a networking security specialist. And then about 3.5 years ago, I moved back into training and development because it's more like what I enjoy doing. But ultimately, during COVID, my son and I were bored like everybody else. And my son one day was like, hey, Mom, let's make some candy. Let's make that candy we used to make when I was a kid. And I was like, oh, the caramels. Yeah, let's do that. So we made a bunch, and, we had so many, we just started giving them to my friends. And my friends were like, oh, these are so great. And, we love them. They're the best caramels we've ever had. And I was like, well, come on, this shirt looks great on me, and I'm sure my hair is perfect and everything else, right? I just thought they were being nice. And then, that was right around Christmas, and then Valentine's Day, people just started trying to place orders. I'm like, what's going on here? So we started a Facebook page, and and that was back in 2020, right when I kind of started learning about Gary Vaynerchuk, and started hearing him say, you're never too old, it's never too late to do what you love. And we started a Facebook page. We became an LLC, and for the last 4 years, we've kind of just been blowing out of the water with these caramels. And now we're opening up our first storefront, our first brick and mortar, and we've got a co-man making our caramels, and I've got some wholesalers that want to pick us up, and things are booming, and it's difficult, but it's really, really fun. And ultimately, my goal is to hopefully someday be able to turn this into a full-fledged business where I can get out of that day-to-day grind that pays all my bills, and I'm super grateful for all these experiences that I have had. But when you do something like Gary Vaynerchuk always says, it doesn't feel like a job, like then you found your niche and your place and what you really want to do. So when I'm busy doing caramel stuff after hours, it's like something that I really love, and it doesn't feel like I'm working, and it's fun. So yeah, so that was long-winded, but that's a little bit about me and what I'm doing and where I came from.
No, I love it. I love that you mentioned all that, because that's one thing that I have to tell you right now. Those caramels are delicious. Me and my kids are big fans of it. My son literally robbed me for half of the stuff that you sent over, but they were so delicious. I love them. So like, I know that you mentioned a lot of stuff as far as like, all the businesses that you are a part of and all the things that you have experience in before you got into doing Carson's Caramels.
Yeah.
What I wanted to first ask you was, you have like a very impressive background in sales and management. What made you decide to start your own small business with Carson's Caramels alongside your successful corporate career?
Yeah, I think I see the light at the end of the tunnel, and I've kind of, I never, like I said, when I went to college, it was like I didn't really want to go because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I'm like, I'm going to waste all this money in college. I don't really know yet. I haven't ironed it out. And so I just think that it just, hey, my son, was my son. He was like, let's do this. And I was like, oh, yeah, and then like just all those people saying, the light bulb went off, and I thought, wow, I could really turn this into something now that I really want to do. And it's like, it's just something that I really love. I'm just backing up. What was your question? It was like, how did I get it? How did I make
what made you want, being that you had your successful, corporate
right,
career and everything you were doing,
right.
What made you want to take on starting your own business?
Yeah, I think for me, I've always been like a juggler, like a multitasker. And so the fact that I've almost always in my whole career worked remote has been one thing that's been great, because I've been able to work out of my home office, which doesn't mean that you can apply yourself to other things during the day. You still have to work your day job, but I think it makes it easier because you're not driving an hour home afterwards. I think you have a little bit of more time at the end of the day, at the beginning of the day, than other people do. And so oftentimes, if I'm just constantly thinking of like, how can I make more money? For me, it's just about making more money. I have one son. He's at a very expensive college. I'm a single mom. I'm putting him through college, all that stuff. And then it's not only that, it's like, what about leaving a legacy? If this company blows up and it becomes what I think it can be, even if it doesn't blow up to as big of a thing as I think it can be, but it's a great little shop that we have in this amazing little storybook town we live in, which is like, which has waterfalls and popcorn shops and open air restaurants. And here comes the little candy store, which, of course, won't just be caramels. It'll be all kinds of specialty candies and certain things. But even if just that is successful, and I can leave that to my son to run someday as something on the side for him and his kids someday, it would be amazing. And the other thing about it is that our recipe actually comes from our family. So my great grandmother, my whole family's from Copenhagen, Denmark, and my great grandmother used to make these sea salt caramels, our staple recipe, our staple flavor, and sell them on my grandfather's butcher store counters. So my grandfather and my great grandfather owned butcher stores in downtown Copenhagen during the war and before the war, in World War II, of course. And so my great grandmother would make these sea salt caramels, and she'd sell them on the counter. And that's where the recipe actually came from. Caramel's a very basic recipe, but we have some secrets inside of our recipe that make them so good. And so it's almost like a family legacy too, like now we have 10 flavors, and we also have a Danish salty licorice flavor, and the syrup in that flavored caramel comes directly from Copenhagen, Denmark, because there's 40 of us still there. Our whole family's there. So it's kind of like a little family legacy too. And the more I started thinking about it, I was like, this could be it. This could be the really fun thing, that I love, that could be my little legacy that I leave for my son, and then someday maybe for his kids too.
I love that. And I love that you're focusing on the family and leaving a legacy. A lot of people, like, yes, you mentioned the business side of things, but a lot of people forget about that. Yes, you can make quick money investing in this and that and doing all that. But it's also, I believe in that. I believe in the whole thing about leaving something for your family, something for them to be proud of, to put their name on it and things like that. It's not only it gives them something not just to fall back on, but to look at as an example of what they can do as well. You know, seeing you being able to do all this and doing it by yourself as a single mom, like, it goes to show them that there shouldn't be anything stopping them, no matter how big their dreams are, whether they want to start their own business or really focus on a specific career. As long as they put the right time, energy, and dedication to it, that they can make it happen. Because literally, like, from the way that you have everything packed, the way it's displayed, the way you guys present everything, it's no different than going to any other shop. It doesn't matter. I would have figured you guys had a whole factory going on over there making this stuff, because now you didn't just give one or two, you gave like a whole bunch of different variations of flavors, and they all taste delicious. Like, you can tell you take your time to really go through not only the flavors, but the packing process, from the way, like I said, the way that we got them. Like, everything was really impressive. Like, I was thinking I was really going to get like a sample thing, and you really gave me like a professionally packed, amazing flavored candy. Like, it just, and then the more and more that I looked into things, I'm like, they're just doing this like in-house. They're doing this themselves. They're making this like, this is their own recipe that they made, that they put together, that, like, I can literally see that you went from, like, you can tell from the quality of it and the amount of effort that you guys are putting into everything. It goes to show that you already went through the steps of going through the testing phase and trying different things out, and labeling and stickers and logos and names. And like, you can see that you guys have your own method already, and it clearly works, because your product is amazing in my opinion, and I love it. I enjoyed it. My kids enjoyed it. I had people that I only wanted them to try one or two, and they were trying to steal all the bags. Like, it was crazy. So, and you mentioned doing all this, but still having your regular job and still being a mom, and, you know, your kids are going to school and everything. Balancing a corporate career with entrepreneurship can be challenging, from what you're explaining and from what you expressed in your experience. Can you share how you manage your time efficiently to be able to balance all that, your regular career, being a mom, and also starting and focusing on your own business?
It's really difficult. I mean, you know, time management is like the number one thing that people talk about, that they have like the biggest issues with. And for me, like, I don't get a lot of sleep. So, there's been days when we were on a TV show, like on one of the local morning shows, and I got like 250 orders of caramels. And I thought that I had enough product, enough inventory. But 250 orders wasn't just 250 bags. It was like some people were ordering 6 bags per order. And we had like to fill these orders. I was up cooking and making caramels till 4 o'clock in the morning, like every night for like a week and a half. Cause you also want to get them out the door as quickly as possible, because you don't want someone to place an order and then be like, oh yeah, well, we didn't get it for like a week and a half.
Yep.
So it's really just, you got to manage your time. It's time management. I got to do my day job, and that comes first because that pays the bills. And so, you don't want to dig into that time. But then, like when that clock stops, you got to start, the other one starts right up. And then, I'm also a homeowner. So I have a house and a yard and, and cars. And, I got my mom who is 84 years old and lives, half hour away. So it's just, how do you manage the time? And, I was hoping to get my brick and mortar shop open second week in July and, do the ribbon cutting and have all this great stuff, especially when people are in town for the national. But it's probably not going to open till August, because, that's another thing. Like, you can't rush these things. You have to do it. And like the packaging and the things that you were talking about that I sent you, you have to make sure that you do things right. And if it takes a little bit longer to perfect it, then you just wait it out, and you just got to make sure you don't hit the go button too quick, because the first impressions are everything. So yeah, you just got to manage your schedule. I mean, like, and everyone says, oh, make a list. Do you make lists? I'm like, I have note cards all over my office, and I make like a million lists a day, but I just have to prioritize and just in my head, just go, okay, what I got to do now? It's almost like that saying, you have to have that ADDDHDDDD. It's like,
Yes.
I got to go back to this, and I got to finish that. It's just doing a million things at once, multitasking.
And what was it that made you want to do caramels or candies or like things like that? Why not do what many other people do and start like a clothing brand or just
Yeah.
focus on investing and things like that? What made you want to do something? Because you clearly know what it takes to make not the chocolate, to make the caramels and
Yeah.
to design, and you know, but you're doing it yourself. A lot of other people would go and hire somebody else to do it and be like, you know what, I don't even want to stress about that, just go and do it. You seem like the type of person that you're going through the process, you're learning it yourself, and you're doing it hands on. Like, what was it that made you be like, you know what, I'm just going to take that route?
Yeah. So, well, twofold. One, again, the family recipe, the family legacy, and leaving something for my son. And then it was kind of a fluke when he said, let's go make it. And then it became so big. Number two, I'm trying to go that route, right? So the most interesting thing that I've found is that, and sometimes I'm like, wow, maybe I picked the wrong candy. Maybe I should have done like, there's so many other candies that are booming right now that aren't quite as difficult as mine. Now, making caramels is actually really easy. But the problem with it is that, like, you can't find a co-manufacturer. It's really hard to find a co-manufacturer because most people that make candy, they might be making caramels, but they are not making, they're making chocolate covered caramels. So they don't have what's called a double twist wrapping machine. So every time I make caramels, we have to hand wrap them and hand package them. In order to find a company that actually has a twist wrapping machine, it's like they want to make a minimum of 45,000 pieces per flavor, and I've got 10 flavors, and I'm not up to scale for that. That's
Gotcha.
like a crazy amount of caramels. The other thing that that they say is, well, just do it yourself. Buy the twist wrapping machine. A brand new twist wrapping machine is like 300 grand. I could get a used one for somewhere between 40 to 80,000. But again, like, my ultimate goal is really not to be in the business of making the caramel. My optimum goal is to be in the business of getting the clients and the wholesale clients and going out and selling the product. And then having somebody else, really offloading the process of making, cutting, wrapping, packaging. My ultimate goal is to find the right co-manufacturer that has a twist wrapping machine that says, hey, yeah, let's do some sample batches. We'll make your caramels. We'll package them. We'll send them over to your fulfillment center, which will then link back into your Shopify site. And then boom, all I have to do is go out and just get all the clients. Right now, I've had to be really, really careful because I can go get 1,000 clients tomorrow, but I can't produce. So, it's this catch-22 where, I've got a 17 chain grocery store that wants to pick us up. I've got a wholesale candy store that's the biggest one in the country that wants to pick us up right now. But I don't have a co-manufacturer that has a twist wrapping machine that can really produce as quickly as I need it. What I do have is a new co-manufacturer that can make my caramels in large batches. And we can pour them into molds, and they can cut them for me or whatever we need. But I still have to package them on the back end and wrap them ourselves. So, it's a little difficult right now. But, we just came off of going to the National Sweets and Snacks Show in Indianapolis. And I met a lot of suppliers there. And so hopefully we have some work to do on the back end to find the right co-manufacturer for the long term. But right now, things are moving along. So it's fun.
That I'm literally mind blown, because literally you sent us a lot of caramel, so to know that you literally had to hand twist and pack all those, one, I feel bad, but then two, they're so delicious. And then it's like and then literally in my mind when you mention that, I'm literally going through the memory of untwisting them and how easy it was to just pull and they snap out and you can just pop one in your mouth and that's it. Like, it's just, and I'm like, this is really like easy to like just open. Like, if everything was just great. I loved everything, and I mentioned it in the video that I did with my son, and my son loved it also. My son was like, someone made this at their house, and I'm like, yeah, she literally just makes the stuff at her house and she packs it and sends it off. And he goes,
Yeah.
so people could do that? And I'm like, yeah. He goes, that's crazy. And like, he was even like wrapping his head around the whole, like, and he's little, he's only 8. So like, for him to think about it like that, it got me to think about it like that. And I was literally just like, for a while, I was looking at the packaging, I was looking at the logo, the design, the way everything. And I loved it because in my head, I'm like, you're so used to seeing other types of caramels that aren't even like, they're like hard
Yeah.
caramels, or like you mentioned, they're chocolate covered. Like, I'm like, these
Yeah.
were really delicious. And they seem like I just got them for you now, fresh. And they're so all those things, like I
Yeah.
was really over analyzing because of the fact that when I went on your site and I looked at all your stuff, I was like, this is all, she's doing this herself. Like, this is like a family thing that they're doing. And it was just one thing that it made me appreciate it and enjoy it even more, to know that it's something, because you can tell, like I mentioned, someone wouldn't go through all that trouble if they really don't care about what they're doing. And it goes to show that you care about what you're doing. You care about the product. You care about the customer. You care about the actual process of what you're doing, how it's presented, how it tastes, like, because everything tasted amazing. And I kept thinking, like, it's just like any other time that you're trying something, like, all right, you're expecting this flavor and because it says it, but you're really not going to get it. You're going to get something. And it literally tastes like it. My son was blown away with the blood orange. He goes, it actually tastes like an orange. He goes, this is, and I loved it. I'm like,
that's our newest flavor too. It's really good.
he went through that whole pack in a day. Like, it
Oh
was
my
just
gosh.
bad. And he loved it. He goes, it literally tastes like I'm biting. That's how he kept telling everyone, like, you want to try one, but you only get one because it literally tastes like you're biting into an orange. Like, and he loved it.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, and it is kind of crazy when I think about it, because most people that do start a small business or a company or whatever, they have like investors or they have partners or there's someone working with them. And really, it's just been me. Like, I've just done it all myself. Even the website, I built the whole website out myself. I figured out how to become an LLC. I talked to attorneys. I figured out how to make my own, the nutrition labels without having to like hire out a company that does the nutrition labels. And I figured out, what are all the health department's guidelines to be a cottage food, to be able to make it out of my home. I just had to figure all that out. And then, and now we're in this process of packaging. We're trying to figure out, okay, how do we extend the shelf life without putting all the crap in the caramels that other people do? I see I'm lagging on video a little bit here. My son's probably streaming downstairs. Hang on, I'm going to text him and say, stop streaming. I'm going to say, stop streaming. He's on his YouTube channel streaming Minecraft, I think. And anyways, with packaging, like, here's another thing you talked about, like flavor of caramels and stuff. Like with my business, I have literally for the last 5 years been ordering every competitive caramel off of Amazon and the internet that I can find, to try and see, like, is anybody's taste like mine? There's been 2 companies out of the many, many, many that I've ordered from that were very comparable. One that was, tasted maybe a little bit better than mine. I can actually honestly say that. But the difference with my caramels and most of these caramels like on the market is that, and I actually had one guy who I wanted to see if he would make my caramels actually tell me, yeah, when you get to be as big as we do, you'll figure out how to cut corners to cut costs, And I was like, wait a minute, aren't you supposed to automatically be able to cut costs when you're bigger, but keep your recipes the same? Because now you've got so much going out the door and you're bringing in so much profit. Like, what are you talking about?
Yes.
A lot of these companies are using a lot of fillers and a lot of crap in their caramels to extend the shelf life. And they're putting in like, we use heavy whip. Are we good?
Yeah, my thing. I think our camera is just adjusting our images, but I think we're good now.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. So, I've been tasting a lot of other caramels, but that's the one thing we do is like I'm not going to change my recipe to extend my shelf life. I may, I put on my packaging like, hey, these caramels are going to last a long time if you keep them cold. Keep them in the fridge, take a handful out, let them to come to room temp and eat them then. But there are some things that we can do with our packaging to extend our shelf life past that 6-month time frame. They last 6 months if you keep them cold. But like, you saw this bag, right? So you saw this bag, which has all these stickers on it and all this craziness. And but our new packaging will look more like this. So it's it still looks the same. It's got that cool craft look, but it's a box. It's actually a box. This one's been beat up a little bit, but it's been taken to shows and everywhere else. But this new one will have like everything printed on it. So even this cutout, this warning sign that says, like opening this package will cause extreme happiness.
Yes, I love
that. This stuff will all now be printed, and the nutrition facts will be printed here, and the barcodes, everything. And then my grandfather's butcher store a picture of that will be on the back and our story will be on the side. So like now it's all like, you know, who's a packaging company that I'm going to work with that's going to create this new package for me? And are they going to get it right? And what do I need to do on the inside to extend the shelf life without having to put a bunch of fake shit in my product, you know?
Yes.
So that's our next step too. So there's just a lot going on the back end. But the one thing I wanted to say was when I went to the National Sweets and Snacks Show in Indianapolis a couple weeks back, I wanted to get there a day early to go to the supplier showcase because that's where all the suppliers sit. And then they have these 3 lanes on the main showroom floor, which is called Startup Street. So if you're a startup company and you know you can get a spot there, and that's where all the wholesalers come through and all the people come through, and they do a little mini Shark Tank. And if you're lucky, you can be on the little mini Shark Tank stage, and you can talk about your product and your journey and how you came to be and where you want to go and everything. Well, it was so interesting because everybody on that supplier showcase, you know, I'm talking to everybody like, hey, I'm this very small startup company. You know, I'm looking for some packaging. I'm looking for someone that can make my caramels. I'm looking for this. I'm looking for that. And every single one of them was like, oh, you're just not big enough. You know, we need you to order like 100,000 pieces of this and 45,000. And I'm like thinking to myself, why do they have Startup Street here? Why are they having, you know, what? And actually the real Shark Tank, like I'd love to get on the real Shark Tank, but even when I watch all those episodes, they're like, what are your sales? What are your sales? Like, you know, how, and they want to know these, they want to see these big numbers. Like, why? Who is here to help out the little guys? Like, there's nobody to help us little people actually scale to succeed in business. Like, I would love to get on Shark Tank and be like, hey, Mr. Wonderful. Hey, everybody, like, I'm here to tell you not about my $1 million worth of sales. I'm here because I'm a startup company that needs help scaling. And I want your expertise to actually do something that the people in America that have small businesses can actually watch. Let's watch an episode that actually shows you guys helping us actually scale to get to where we need to be.
I agree.
Because we've got the intelligence. You know, I know a lot about business. I know everything about sales. You know, but let's talk about who's going to help us get there, you know?
I agree with you. No, that's something I agree with you.
The biggest obstacle is like, how do you get over that next hurdle, you know?
Exactly. No, and I agree with you because a lot of those shows, it's really hard to watch that show. And it's like you say, you really don't see the little guy on there. You don't see the real startups. People go on there claiming that they're a startup, but they're already on there making millions and millions of dollars, and they're already in certain stores and here and there. And it's like, what are you guys are really offering if they're already halfway there? You're just basically trying to see if you can make a profit from giving them a loan, you know, and it's just to the point that you would think it would be the other way around, in the sense of like them actually trying to go through the process of being like, look, you should avoid this, go for this, and you should start here, do that, and then we'll work on this. You need money to get this, then we'll get you that, or we'll find another factory that doesn't need so have such a high request or demand for them to work with you and do these order. Like, you would think that's really what they would be offering, and it doesn't ever come off like that, and it does suck. It does get really challenging from the sound.
And everyone's like a bioengineer, right? Like everybody that comes on there is like, oh yeah, I worked for NASA, or I was a bioengineer, or I did this, or I did that. Like, what about just like the normal little guy that just like had an amazing idea? And it's really, really interesting too, because my brother and I, you know, we have a million ideas for different products that would be like amazing hot sellers on the market. But it's just that, like, how do you even like get the prototype? Like, I have a suitcase idea that no one's ever thought of. And I have a restaurant idea that no one's ever thought of. But it's like with the suitcase thing, like, how do you get the prototype made? Like, I'm sure I could do all this research and stuff, but you still need the money. And then you got to go find, someone will say, okay, go find an investor, go get an investor. Well, maybe I don't want an investor. Like, maybe I want to do it on my own, and then come to Shark Tank and give them 5% or 20% of my company. And then, you know, and then they look at that better, because then that's another thing. Like, they don't want to see that I have, that's the first thing they ask. Well, you know, how much your company, how many investors do you have? You know, what's your bottom line? Like, you know, what's the ownership look like? They want to see that too. And then if you've got too many investors, you're like, I'm out.
Yeah, exactly.
It's such a catch-22.
It's a hard thing to try and play around with. And that's why, like, it's me myself, I get very intimidated, just like I'm pretty sure many other people in the chat and watching us right now on Twitch and on X and on YouTube get to the point where we have that good idea, or we feel like we're very like able to execute our plan, but it's just that thing of knowing the right people, of having access to those financials, of having the knowledge or access to people that can make you those like you're saying, like to get the prototypes and to work on the design, or maybe even better educate you on legal stuff, like what you're allowed to do and not do, and what there's certain laws against if you're doing a certain design of something or coming out with certain candies or edible stuff. Like there's a lot of other things that, you know, some people, they get very discouraged quickly because they just watch a few things or hear a few stories and they think it's as easy as just coming up with a name, having a logo, and then that's it, you're good to go, and you just got to find someone to make the stuff for you. But then you start noticing it's not as easy as it sounds or looks. Like you really have to go through the process of finding out who's a person to go through if you're getting something designed, or if you're getting something made that someone's going to eat. Like who's going to cook? Do they have experience in cooking? Do they pay attention to things like food allergies, or is everything that they're coming, is it organic, is it this? Like there's a lot of different things, and it's no different than when you're designing clothes or you're designing videos or websites and all. There's a whole bunch of little things that happen behind the scenes that people really don't see or notice until they actually start getting the hands-on experience, and they're there firsthand, and they're like, wow, I didn't know I had to do all this. Or the number one thing that I overthink about is the legal aspect of everything. Like I always have so many ideas, but then I'm always thinking about, all right, what about my logo? Is it against anything, or is my name taken already, or is it going to affect if I use it can I use it in certain stores or certain websites, or certain, there's like so many things I overthink about when it comes to that it starts trickling down to, all right, let's say you pass all that, then it's onto the physical stage where you have to have a physical product, a physical thing to show and display people. And then you're like, all right, I have the idea, but I don't know how to make it. So there's very few people that take the route such as yourself, that go out their way to educate themselves and be like, you know what, I'm just going to do it myself. All these people don't have the machine. Screw it. I'm going to stay up until 4 a.m. I'm going to make these things and I'm going to wrap them up myself. Like it's things like that show your real dedication, and that you can clearly see the vision in your mind, and you're that focused that you know you can make it come into reality, that you're not giving up on it. It's just the thing that you've noticed other people, they don't, it's hard to find someone who cares about that, because that's really what people should be buying and getting from the stores, products from people such as yourself. But then it's like you're saying, you meet all these other people that they literally just got blinded by the greed, and they don't care about anything as far as having any chemicals in their product. They're like, what's going to last on the shelf longest, where we don't have to spend more money to make more of it, but still make enough money from these people like we have been. And that's what sucks. Like there's more companies that are like that nowadays, that you grow to have them in your life, and it's to a point that you get addicted to it, or you're just a big fan of it. And then as you get older, as the time goes on, you start realizing what's really in these things that we're buying, or what they support, or that they really don't care about your health, or the flavor or the product and how it's like, it's little things like that when time goes on, you start seeing that these big companies, they're really not out for anything but just to make more money. And then it sucks because companies such as yourself that are literally putting in the time and effort to show that you actually care about not only the product, but the people buying it and consuming your stuff. Like you guys don't get the opportunity to show that you can actually hang in there and make it with the big time people, you know? And it's dumb. It's dumb that they come up with things like, oh, like I understand the financial side of it and the business side of things. It's like, okay, there has to be a limit to how many, or you have to be required these many flavors and these many, or like, I get that. But at the same time, the fact that they don't look at the potential in this and look at it like, you know what, this is a good idea, a good flavor. Let's actually try to put this out there and figure out a way and be the first people to find a way that we can add something to this to make the shelf life last without throwing all these chemicals in it and not really, you know. So it's a lot though.
So hopefully that's what will happen. So when the one cool thing that came out of, well, a lot of cool things came out of that snacks show, but one of the really cool things that did come out as well is that I was allotted a spot on the startup street for next year. So by this time next year, you know, I'll have come again another year along. Our shop will be open. I'm sure we'll have all of our new packaging. We'll have the wholesaler hopefully the co-man hopefully down, or at least we'll have the one that will be pumping out the larger batches. And we'll be ready to launch in more areas. But being on that startup street is going to be really cool. So that, but even that, like, everyone kept asking me when I was at the show, they're like, hey, like, oh, do you have a booth? Do you have a booth? I'm like, no, I didn't want a booth this year. I wanted to come here and see everybody else's booths. I wanted to see what's going on. And then I wanted to look at Startup Street, and I wanted to see, like, what do those people's booths in Startup Street look like? What do I need to get to prepare myself for next year so that I blow it out of the water? You know what I mean?
Smart.
Yeah. So I was taking pictures and like checking everything out, and like seeing where were the best places that people were hanging out at, and why were they hanging out there, and what made their product cool, and what made their booth stand out, and all that. So I'll be up for that next year. And and then just networking, like even in my business life in the IT world, and in every company that I've been with, and this is like the one thing I tell every single person, whether you want to start your own business, whether you're doing your day job, whatever that might be, is networking. I mean, I used to be so shy. I tell everybody this, I blushed until I was 20 years old. I mean, nobody could talk to me. My cheeks would turn red. I never want to talk in front of people. And then, I took this class and I had to do a speech, and I stood up and I did that one speech, and that was it. And I wasn't shy anymore. And I found the value of like just talking to people. And now I'm at the age I'm at that I don't give a shit anymore, right? Like, I don't care what anybody thinks about me. I'm totally past all that. And like, I just walk up to people now, because the thing is, like, you don't know who's standing next to you. I was out the other night with my friend's high school reunion, and I start talking to this guy about Bitcoin, and he's like, you know about Bitcoin, and you know about NFTs, and we start talking about all this stuff. And I tell him about my career and where, and all of a sudden this guy says to me, send me a basket of your caramels, and if I love them, I'm going to write you a check for 40 grand to go get that wrapping machine. And I was like, what? This guy used to work for Apple, and he retired like 20 years ago, and he used to work directly for Steve Jobs. And I was like, this is a crazy conversation I have right now. So you have to network. You don't know who's going to be standing next to you. And it doesn't matter what they're wearing, what they look like. You don't have any idea who they are.
Yes.
And it's not about who you know. Like, I hear people all the time, oh, I know that guy. I know that guy. I know that guy. I know her. Awesome. Do they know you?
Yes.
No one cares who you know. If they don't know you, it doesn't matter.
Agreed.
Like, it just doesn't matter. I mean, they need to know who you are, where you're from, and what your name is, and what you stand for, and what you do. And if you're not out there networking every day in some capacity, you're not going to get anywhere. You have to network.
I agree with you. I love that you mentioned that, because I think that's very important. I believe that it's important. Not only, yes, it's like you're saying, a lot of people are really stuck and focused on the thing of who they know, and it's not about who they know. It's if they know you. I agree with you. I totally agree with you. And you don't know. It's a small world. You don't know not only who knows who, but who you're with. Like, nowadays, it's really rare. As much as it may not seem like it, I strongly believe since COVID, it's been really rare to get a lot of people together in certain areas. One, without it starting any problems, because things are just crazy nowadays and everyone finds a reason not to get along over the dumbest things. But two, to have a group of people come together, especially if they're really willing to talk to one another and conversate, and it's not like they just went there to meet one specific group of people that they already know, but they're actually, such as yourself, going out of their way and breaking out of their comfort zone to talk to other strangers and get to know and meet new people, and express and share who they are and what they're working on and what ideas they have. Like, that is really rare. Online you can find it a lot, but it's hard to really distinguish who's genuine about what they're saying and what they're doing, because online you can literally fake the funk, and you can kind of do a lot of that in real life too. But I feel like that thing of in-person interaction is a big benefit, because I believe a lot of people, maybe not all, but a lot of people are good at reading others, and they can tell, especially if they've been through all the stuff themselves. that they can talk about what they're talking about and back it up, I believe that that also goes to give you the experience to be able to be a good judge of character of someone else you're meeting. So you already know, you've already been through this where you've shared who you are and pitched your idea and your business to many people. You already know, I bet you from the first few seconds, if this person really gives a shit about what you're talking about, or if they're just sitting there to waste your time. And like, it's things like that that you get a good beat on, and you start knowing how to focus and manage your energy and your time, and that really, all of that helps out a lot. But the fact that you're actually willing to go out of your comfort zone is a big thing. I think that that's really important. No one's gonna know what the hell you're doing or who you are unless you tell people. You have to tell people, you have to put it out there, you have to share your stuff. Like, I come from the era growing up that everything was just, you have to be mysterious and don't tell no one nothing, and then secretly do this. And it's like, you can't do that now. That stuff doesn't work now. Like, it doesn't, like, no one cares if you got a project you've been talking about for fucking 3 months and you haven't put it. That doesn't help. That doesn't do nothing. But then there's people who are actually out there and they get knocked, or they get made fun of, or they get told it's not going to work when they're documenting their life, they're sharing it, or they're taking the time to go and take a trip to go to another state or another place and go to these meetings to pitch their ideas, or share thoughts and ideas with other people that, like you said, you don't know who they might be or what it could lead to. It's all an opportunity. And if you really care about what you're doing, what you're working on, and what you're talking about, you're gonna find people who actually have the same, that share the same interest as you. There's no way it's not gonna happen.
Yeah, like-minded people. I love your story too. I was watching your interview with Gary the other day, and I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know that that was how you got started. Like, same thing, like, you're in COVID, you're setting up your studio, all of a sudden you need to pivot. And like, everything that you've done is amazing. Like, look what you've done and look what you're doing. I mean, like, you know, you've got this amazing podcast and you're editing, and you're like, even just your, like, I'm looking at the background screen right now. I mean, it's amazing. Like, you're doing a phenomenal job. So let's not, like, let's give you some kudos here as well. It's your story is amazing too. I mean, have you been on, have you just been like talking about your story to anybody? Like, you know, it's cool.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And that's, I think a lot of people got inspired, or just that push that they needed during that COVID time to really just go for whatever it was that they wanted to do, whether it was a business or a hobby or whatever. Like, it was just a wake up call for a lot of people. Like, what's the point of sitting around and waiting? Like, that could have turned into something else. That could have been made into a worse situation. We could have probably never gotten out of it. But little by little, people started making changes, things started changing, and people adapted. But it's one of those things that it makes you think, like, what are you going to do if it comes time that you can't socialize or conversate or be around other people physically? And you have to adapt, whether you were a business owner at that time or whether you didn't have a business and you didn't have money to fall back on, or a plan B, or like, I feel like that tested the people who started something and needed to adapt very quickly. And it also tested the people who kept pushing stuff on, thinking that they would have tomorrow or the next day to go and start this. And it really changed things for people. And I feel like everything kind of not really fully going back to normal. It's making everyone really like go back and forth on whether should I start this, because what if something like COVID does happen again? Is it worth starting a business? Is it not? Can I do it? Can I manage it? So it's all those things that I know come into play. So when you're making your decisions of what you want to do, how you're going to do it, and you know what the extent is of your capabilities to what you have at your disposal to make it happen, it shows that you're not even thinking like that. You're more of just, you know what? I know I have a good idea. If I don't have it, I'm going to go get it and I'm going to figure it out. And that's what I really love about it. And that's why I really like all of that shows. All of it shows. This is my first time speaking with you, and you're literally how I would imagine you to be, to the point that you're really motivated and dedicated behind what you're doing because you believe in it that much. You know that you have something good. You know that not only that is it a good idea for a business point of view, but also they're just delicious. It's a good product. What I wanted to ask you,
it is a good product, and I appreciate.
No, you can go ahead. I think we have a lag.
No, yeah, I just appreciate all the kudos. I mean, I'm glad you love it so much, and a lot of people do, and they are good, and I like them, and hopefully, you know, hopefully it'll take us far. We'll see what happens.
What I wanted to ask you next, what makes Carson's caramels unique from other caramel brands?
Yeah. So like I said before, it's pretty easy to make caramels. The difficulty comes into, and even making flavored caramels isn't difficult. I think it's the temperature that you cook them at. I think it's the flavors that you choose, and it's the ingredients that you use. There's really only 4 or 5 basic ingredients in making caramels, but it's the process. So like I said, we use only the best products. We use heavy whipping cream in our caramels, which is no secret. It's right on the back of the bag. We use the best butter we can find. We use pure granulated sugar and brown sugar. We use amazing flavors. We put, espresso in our coffee flavor. So it's the way that you make them. It's not necessarily, again, like flavoring of caramels and the basic recipe, anybody can make them. It's just, it's how you adjust it and how you cook them and how you package them and how you flavor them really is what it is. So it's not difficult. It's not difficult to make them. It's just, I think that, like I said, all these big caramel companies, they get really big and then they start putting a bunch of crap in their caramels, and then they start trying to extend the shelf life, and then they just they chemical them up and they taste terrible. Like some of these that I've bought, they just taste like the wrapper, they taste like the packaging, or they come in stale. And people are like, "What do you mean stale? What's a stale caramel?"
Mm-hmm.
And some of my friends, some of my V friends know this because I've shipped boxes to Australia, and they've gotten like lost in transit, or they've been sent back and forth a million times, and they show up like 4 months later and they've been like completely exposed to the heat, or the chemicals in the trucks or whatever. And like, in order to know if a caramel is bad or not, I'll take one out of this bag. And they're never bad. Like, they won't harm you if they end up this way, but they just won't taste right. And nobody wants to sell, or no caramel company wants their caramel to show up like this.
Yeah.
So if you have a good caramel, like when you put it in between your fingers and you stretch it, it'll just stretch out like this really good. The color is the same all the way through. It's almost like transparent. It's really cool. When you get a bad caramel, not bad, but an old one, I could probably pull one out of here. These might be old because this is a sample box. It's been sitting around my house. It's been in the heat. It's been everywhere. Well, although these might still be okay. What happens is, and these are still good. Oh no, they're getting there. So I don't know if you can see that, but it starts to like crumble.
Yes.
So the exterior of the caramel starts to pull away from the inside of the caramel. And then they'll still taste fine. This one's not quite bad yet. They'll still taste fine, but they'll be gritty.
Yeah.
And the exterior will look like really white in color, like lighter in color than the inside. It sort of separates from the inside. And like, I remember somebody wanted me to work with this one company. They're like, "Oh, these guys could make your caramels. They make caramels of their own." And I was like, "Okay, well, before I call them, I'm going to order a bag and ship it to my house and see if I like it." So I get this bag of caramels, and it's shipped to my house. And like, I got it in 2 days flat. I open it up. I'm super excited. And I bite into it and I'm like, "Oh man, the whole outside separated from the inside." So I write them an email and I'm like, "Hey guys, like, you sent me these caramels. They came here in 2 days. They're totally old, or they've been heat exposed." And they're like, "Oh no, shouldn't have been. But by the way, we know who you are and we'd love to have a meeting with you." I'm like, "I don't know if I want you to make my caramels." There's something wrong in the shipping process if you said these just came off mine 2 days ago, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't think so. So, but yeah, like, it's pretty
I
interesting.
love that though. I love that.
So those are like the nuances, like you just, it's packaging, it's temperature, it's all these different things that you really have to think about and be careful about when you're shipping and you're making them, So
you mentioned how you're working on opening an actual physical location, and you also mentioned earlier how you want to do not just caramels, but you want to actually introduce other different types of candies and things. Can you go into a little bit of any plans that you have to expand the products beyond the caramels?
Yes. So basically, like, I think the little town I live in, it's kind of like a little tourist town. There's about 5,000 people that live here. We have, like I said, waterfalls and popcorn shops and all this cool little thing. Lots of people come here to walk around all year long. And we used to have a little candy store, but that went out of business a long time ago. And now we have our popcorn shop, which specializes ice cream and popcorn. And they sell like charms and like, Tootsie Rolls and old time candy. But no one ever really brought back a candy store. And I was like, well, I want to open Carson's Caramels. And the more I thought about it, I'm like, well, I probably can't make it just on selling caramels every day. I got to pay the rent. So when I was at the Sweets and Snacks show, the big craze right now is freeze-dried candy. I mean, freeze-dried candy is amazing. So we're going to have like a whole line of freeze-dried candies. Those are like freeze-dried gummy worms, freeze-dried ice cream sandwiches, freeze-dried Skittles, Jolly Ranchers, all that kind of stuff. Now I'm not making these. I'm buying that wholesale and selling it retail. We're going to have all kinds of specialty chocolate covered licorices that come from Copenhagen. So from our home country, we're going to have a lot of Danish candy and licorices from Europe. We're going to have a big variety of chocolate candy, chocolate covered caramels. We're going to have caramel corn. So we'll have caramel popcorn, a lot of caramel sort of themed items. And then we're also going to have, I don't know if you've heard of, I'm sure you've heard of Dippin' Dots, but there's another company called Mini Melts, which is kind of like, it's almost like the adult kind of Dippin' Dots. They're much creamier. We're going to have a big cooler full of Mini Melts. We're also hopefully going to be selling carry-out beer and wine as well.
Gotcha.
So we have some permits out for that. We'll also be able to sample on site. So we'll be doing some high-end beers, like craft beers from some local breweries and some wines. And we may even be doing a Carson's Caramel Ale. We're talking to a local brewer, craft brewer here in town that's going to be making a Carson's Caramel Ale for us. So that's next in line. You're the first one to hear about that.
Nice.
Yeah. So and the logo is like so amazing. Like I'll send you the logo and you'll flip out. It's like so cool. So a lot of that kind of stuff going on in the background as well for the shop, for our little shop. It's gonna be really fun. We'll also have chips and all kinds of cool stuff, like really cool stuff.
I love that. I love how you're expanding and you're just keeping, you're doing everything to combine your brand and your flavor with other stuff, but also you're not introducing, but you're also combining it with the popular stuff as well. And you're not limiting it to that, and you're playing around with the what is it that you would use to do that with, like the candies though, to do the freeze dried stuff?
So we don't. I like I said, I buy that wholesale. I'll be buying that wholesale and selling it.
You would buy it freeze dried already then?
Yes, it's already freeze dried. There's other companies that are already in that business. But what I can tell you is when I was at the snacks and the Sweets and Snacks show, it was like, and every company that you could name, every candy company and every snack company that you can name off the top of your head, every single company was there. This is like the National Sweets and Snacks show. There was freeze-dried candy at every friggin' booth. I mean, between that and beef jerky and chips, it was like the biggest hit, the biggest thing on the market right now is this freeze-dried candy. And it's actually very easy to make. Like I keep saying, I should have gotten into that business. The shelf life's a year.
Oh, wow.
It's really easy to do. Yeah. And actually I might expand into that business at some point, because what I have to tell you is I've already purchased a bunch of the product for my shop, and I had to get it out of my house because I was eating so many bags of the freeze-dried Jolly Ranchers that I thought I was going to like become a diabetic. It was bad. I mean, it's so good. It's so good. Oh my God.
Yeah, I love that. I love to see that you care about the product that much. You're testing it and trying it out before you put it out there. You gotta try out the product. So
oh yeah, you cannot put anything. And here's another cool thing that they had. Check this out. I don't know if you've seen these. Have you seen these? They're called Nude Mints. They're these tiny, tiny, tiny little. Here's another pack. These ones are called Paper Mints. They're these tiny little pods. These ones are green. They're these tiny, tiny little pods. And what you do is you put them on your tongue, and it's a breath mint. You put them on your tongue, and once the exterior like bursts, there's a little bead left inside. You swallow the bead down, and it just hangs out in your gut, and it gives you fresh breath from the inside out.
What the
for
hell?
like hours. These are amazing.
That's crazy.
So, yes.
I've never heard of nothing like that. That's crazy.
It's called the Breath and Gut Mint. So
I gotta go to these things, man. If they have all these different stuff, like I never would have thought that. Like,
it's a sexy spearmint. It says they're so cool. I mean, they had the coolest stuff there. So we got those, and then there were these like these macadamia nuts. They're Maui onion and garlic. Oh yeah, we're gonna sell these. I mean, like, yeah, I've been eating candy and stuff for like, I don't know. I've gained like 20 pounds. We're gonna sell these in our shop. These are these ears of corn. Have you ever seen these?
No, that's
so
my
cool.
first time seeing these.
It's called poppin' cobs.
Wait, so that's
it's called poppin' cobs.
This
is actually like it's like a cob of corn. You take this cob of corn out of the box, and you put it in this bag, right? You put the cob of corn in this bag, and you stick it in the microwave, and it's a real cob of corn. I don't know how it works, but it pops in the microwave off the cob in this bag. It's so cool.
It is.
There was a lot of
unique way to do popcorn. I love that.
Super cool. Less mess.
Yes.
Less mess. But so it's some really unique stuff. So, stuff you just can't like really find anywhere else. We're gonna have a lot of that cool stuff in the shop. It's gonna be really fun. And some of the people that are coming from VFriends, that are coming here for the National Sports and Collectors Show, that's another thing I do. I've been collecting sports cards ever since I was a little kid back in the 70s. So I have a huge collection of baseballs and sports cards and trading cards. And those people, those friends of ours that are coming, they're going to get to come and see the shop, which is going to be really fun. So, I mean, it won't be ready to be opened, but they'll get to kind of get a glimpse of what's going on in there and what it's going to look like and how much fun it's going to be. So
I love that. I love when you give people like a sneak peek behind the scenes, or at least in the beginning stages of everything. They get to see what it was like, and then when they come and see like the grand opening, they'll see exactly what you did to the place and what you added and what you changed, and they can see like your actual vision start coming to full fruition and coming to life, and all that stuff is a big thing. I myself, as a person who tries to make his own things and tries to be as creative as possible, I truly appreciate things like that, especially when people such as yourself have the passion to actually take that leap and, really invest in yourself and your idea and your thoughts and your plans. And because it's not easy. It's not easy to go through all that. And another thing is you have to be very patient. I like how you mentioned you went to the convention this year, but you didn't go with the intentions of, wanting to try and outperform anybody else there or nothing. You were more focused on just going there and observing and learning what you needed to learn so that you can come really prepared and really show up next year. A lot of people don't really think of things like that. They just want to go and get things ready and out the door right away. And you're really taking your time to analyze and think about all that stuff, how it is on the business side of things, how it's going to affect you, if it's going to benefit you. And then you also look at it from the perspective of the consumer, of what makes them attracted to this, what makes them go over there, why is this one more better than that one. Like, all that goes to show a lot about who you are as a person, as a business owner, as a creator. Like, all those things it takes time. It takes time to really go in and learn and absorb that information and learn what you're supposed to learn before you get that confidence to go out there and not only present what you created yourself, but to be able to mingle and speak with other people who actually have that also, who have their own businesses for years and have it in many different stores. Like, you're not in any way intimidated to go up to these people and talk to them and be like, listen, this is who I am. This is what I have. This is what I want to do. Let's try and work and do something. A lot of people get very intimidated to even share what they're working on, whether it's online or with a few people that they know personally. And it's like you mentioned, you're just up to the point where you don't care no more. It's more about just not wasting any more time and putting yourself out there and really believing in yourself and taking that risk to make something from nothing. And there's not many people that are willing to do that nowadays. And I think we need more of that. So I thank you for being a great example of that, for sharing your story and coming on here. And all that is it's not easy to publicly start sharing your thoughts and ideas. You get that pressure of like, is it going to work? Is it not going to work? Am I going to follow through with this? Is this going to lead up to this? Maybe, you know, a lot of those things come into people's minds, such as myself, and it holds us back. It makes us second guess our decision. It makes us debate if we should move forward. And it's not easy, man, especially when you're a parent. That's the other thing. Being a parent, on top of that, it's, you think about a lot, because it's not just about you. It's not just about you, it's your family. And then you mentioned legacy, and you're using a lot of things that your family utilizes in their recipes, and they're like, so it's a lot of things that you have to consider, and that you have every time that you put your logo on a bag and you ship it out to someone, knowing that you made it yourself. You know, it takes a lot of pride, it takes a lot of passion and heart, and I just love it. That's why I'm really a fan of you and what you're doing and your brand. And that's why I really wanted to talk more. I feel like more people should know about who you are, the person behind Carson's Caramels, and, you know, the delicious treats that you're making, but also they can learn a lot from you. They can see that from just being dedicated and motivated, you can really, like, would you have expected that you would be where you are today when you first just were talking with your son about making these like candies for other people to buy or have? Like,
No, like, you know, and his name's Carson. So, you know, I was like, we were just making caramels in the kitchen. We're like, yeah, we'll make some caramels like we made when we were kids. You know, never expected it that this would be the one thing that would get me, you know, motivated enough to be like, okay, I want to like see how far we can take this. Never thought, you know, we just thought we were making some candy, having some fun. And then, you know, people were just like, wow, wait a second, these are really good. You know?
being that you've
So,
been doing your own business for quite some time now, do you find any parallels between your corporate career and running your own business?
100%. I mean, you know, it's all of that. It's the networking, it's the sales aspect, it's the knowledge, learning, and, you know, everything that I've done in sales. I think, you know, that move that I made, that jump I did when I went to college, and then just going into business from there, into sales, like, that's all prepared me for where I am today. I don't think I would have been. I keep saying to everybody, wow, I wish I would have came up with this idea 20 years ago, or I wish I would have, but I don't think that I necessarily would have had the patience, or that I would have been prepared quite as well to have gone down the same path, you know, or maybe it would have fumbled or jumbled, but you never know. I mean, but there's definitely those parallels. I mean, it has prepared me to be, you know, the person that I am today. All those experiences, I've worked in so many different verticals, and with so many different products, and I've worked for little mom and pop companies and Fortune 500 companies. I've worked for global companies, and I've worked, you know, on the commercial, the enterprise, and the global end of things, and just from the sales, and then being the person to train this global salespeople myself, and doing the enablement, working for HR firms and all of that. That has all helped to shape the person that I am today, to give me the skills and the patience, like you said, and the organizational ability to be able to do what I'm doing now on the side, you know. So they kind of all have gone hand in hand.
Do you have any tips for aspiring entrepreneurs who are looking to balance their side hustle with a full-time job, or balancing it with the responsibilities of being a parent?
Um, you know, for me right now, I'm lucky because my son's in college now, but it was a big juggle when he wasn't, even just with my day job. And I think, like, the biggest piece of advice that I can give to everybody, especially people that are trying to get, you know, to start their own businesses, but are still in the real, you know, grind of the day-to-day trench that they don't want to be in, is to really, like, work the job. Don't let the job work you. And you can interpret that in any way that you want. Life is very, very short. So if you have to stay in that day-to-day grind while you're trying to get your business up and running on the back end, again, just work the job and don't let the job work you. So try to balance your work life because you get one shot, you know.
I love
And
that.
I've come to the realization right now that, I'm trying to clean my whole attic out, and I'm like, I just don't need all this shit. Like, I'm at the age now where, like, I just want to have experiences. My son's not going to look back at all my high school memories that are up in my attic and all that crap that's just compiling everywhere, but he's going to remember the experiences that we've had together, So just like, life is short. You got one shot.
I totally agree with you. I agree with you. I think that everyone needs to stop debating, take that step, stop holding back, stop saying that they have tomorrow or next week or whatever. I think it's always good to start today and stop waiting for that one day to come along and for you to be like, you know what, it's I think it's just now. We don't need to wait for another COVID to happen. We don't need to wait for something very drastic to pressure you in your life to make you think like you only have one shot and one opportunity. That's right now. Like, it should just be do it. If you have the idea and you have the courage to put it out there, just go do it. Don't put yourself in a position where you're waiting for that very pressuring moment in your life that makes you feel like, you know what, it's this or nothing and I have no other options. It's better to start now where you don't have that pressure and you can work on it and build something from scratch. And I totally agree with you. We only have one life, and there's no point in just waiting around to the point where we get to that age or that time where we're like, it's too late. We don't have the energy, we don't have the time in the day, or it's just one of those things that I'm also big. One thing that happens a lot to me is that I second guess on ideas, and then I really beat myself up later when I see someone else come up with the similar idea or the same exact idea. And you're like, then you turn into that guy. I thought of that a while ago and I could have.
I wish I would have done that. Darn it. Yeah.
And then it's really like, okay, so why didn't you? Like, just, you should have just did. Oh, but I didn't. Okay, that person didn't either. It's just about being patient and having the time and really putting in that effort. Anything is possible if you put in that time. I'm a strong believer.
It is. And the one thing I do want to add too, like, for me, okay, I've been in business a long time and now I have a little bit of a nest egg to be able to like actually do this myself without an investor or partner. But I think too, a lot of people get discouraged, especially the younger people. They're like, oh man, like I can never do that by myself. How am I gonna finance that? What am I gonna do? Like, and that's exactly how I felt. I mean, I remember when I started out making no money and I worked my way up the ladder. And each job I got, I made more and more money. And but if you have a great idea, again, it's that networking. Like, it's okay to have a partner. It's okay to have investors. You know what I mean? It's great if you can find those people, but you're not going to find them unless you start talking to people and you network. So if you're young and you just don't think you can do it on your own, go get a partner, find an investor, like find somebody that's got the same drive that you do and do it together. Just get started. Just start it. I didn't have a business plan. Everyone says, oh, you got to have a business plan. I'm going to have to write up this whole business plan. I got to do this, got to do that. Well, yeah, if you're going to go get loans and you're going to get a business loan, you're going to do that, then yeah, you got to have these business plans written out. But, if you've got a partner, someone you're working with, it's a lot easier than trying to do it all by yourself. So it's definitely doable.
I hear you. I agree. I think anything is possible. Where there's a will, there's a way, right?
Yeah.
So far we've been streaming for an hour. We have 19 people tuning in right now. We have 13 that are on X. We have 2 that are on Twitch, and we have 4 that are on YouTube. For anyone who is interested to learn more about Joanne or Carson's Caramels, or you want to place your own order and try these delicious treats yourself, you can head over to her profile and her sites wherever you are listening to this, whether it's a pre-recording on Twitch or YouTube, or if you're just listening to the podcast or watching, The information to contact Joanne and learn more about her, what she's doing, and her company is going to be listed in the description of this podcast episode. So please make sure you go and check her stuff out, show her some love, hit her with a follow, place an order for some of these delicious treats. I promise you, you will not regret it. My favorite is the banana, but the coffee's my second favorite. Blood orange, my son he will die on blood orange. He swears that is the best. He doesn't care about any of the other ones. My daughter liked the salted caramel one. She was a fan of that.
Yeah.
But they have very delicious flavors. Be on the lookout for more stuff to come. And before we get out of here, Joanne, is there anything that you want to share with our listeners, or let us know that you have coming up that you haven't told us already? We know you have your store coming up. You have all these different flavors and all these different other assortment of candies that you're working on, especially the beer that I'm looking to try. I would love to try some of the Carson's caramel beers. That would be amazing. I think that's a great idea. But before we get out of here, is there anything that you would like to say or anything that you would like to share with us?
Nope. Just remember that old saying that I keep talking about. It's not about who you know. It's about who knows you. So get out there and network and just do what you want to do and have fun. Make sure you're having fun doing it.
I love that. And I agree too. Make sure that whatever you're doing and you're putting your passion and your time into, whatever you're putting your energy and your time into is something that you truly have passion for. Joanne, thank you so much for taking the time to be on, for sharing more about yourself, and for your sharing about Carson's Caramels. Thank you for sending me those delicious treats. I really, really loved it. I can't wait to place an order again soon. And yes, thank you all for tuning in, for showing love, for kicking it with us in the chat. And until next time, this is PR the King of Hearts. This is clocking out. I love y'all. Stay safe. Peace.
Peace out.